Imagine you're standing in the middle of a raging storm. The wind is howling, the rain is relentless, and you're gripping an umbrella with all your strength, trying to hold it steady, but no matter how tightly you cling to it, the storm isn't stopping. Now, what if I told you that success, happiness, and fulfillment aren't found in fighting the storm, but in realizing what's within your control? Most of us spend our lives holding on to things we have no power over, other people's opinions, past mistakes, future uncertainties. But true growth comes when we learn to release what doesn't serve us and focus on what we can control. Let's talk about what that means. There are two kinds of problems in life, the ones we can control and the ones we can't. The problem is most people spend the majority of their energy fixated on the second category. Think about how much time we waste worrying about things outside of our control. The weather, the economy, other people's opinions, or what might happen 5 years from now. We stress over the actions of others, over circumstances we didn't create, over outcomes we can't predict, and in doing so, we give away our power. But what if, instead of obsessing over what we can't change, we double down on what we can? The circle of control. Imagine two circles. The first is your circle of concern. All the things that take up space in your mind, but that you have little to no control over. Things like global events, office politics, how someone reacts to you, or even traffic on your morning commute. The second is your circle of influence, the things you do have control over. Your mindset, your habits, your reactions, the way you choose to spend your time. Most people operate in the first circle. They let external factors dictate their mood, their energy, and their decisions. They react to the world instead of actively shaping it. But the most successful, fulfilled people, they live inside the second circle. They don't waste time fighting the uncontrollable. They focus on what they can do right now with what they have. Reclaiming your energy. Think about how much mental space is taken up by things outside your control. You spend hours replaying a conversation, wondering what you should have said. You stress about what someone else thinks of you, even though their perception is out of your hands. You fear a future scenario that may never happen, losing sleep over endless what-ifs. Now imagine redirecting all that energy into something productive, something you can actually influence. Instead of worrying about whether your boss will recognize your work, you focus on delivering value and growing your skills. Instead of getting angry about the economy, you sharpen your financial literacy and prepare for whatever comes. Instead of trying to control how someone else behaves, you focus on how you respond. When you stop pouring energy into things beyond your reach, you free yourself. You become lighter, more effective, and more at peace. Because real power isn't in controlling the uncontrollable, it's in mastering your response. The power of small shifts. Focusing on what you can influence isn't about making massive changes overnight. It's about small, intentional shifts in perspective. Think about a pilot flying across the ocean. If they adjust their course by just 1 degree, they'll land in an entirely different country. The same applies to life. The smallest shift in focus, choosing to let go of what you can't control and directing energy toward what you can, changes everything. Every single day, we are given two choices. Waste time and energy fixating on the uncontrollable. Take ownership of what's within our power and make meaningful progress. Which choice are you making? Perspective is everything. It is the lens through which we see the world, the filter that shapes our experiences, and the foundation of our beliefs. Two people can go through the exact same situation and come out with completely different takeaways. Not because the event was different, but because their perspective was. We don't see the world as it is, we see it as we are. The story we tell ourselves. Every day, we are telling ourselves a story about what is happening to us. The question is that story serving us or is it limiting us? Consider this, two people lose their jobs on the same day. One sees it as a disaster proof that they are unworthy, a confirmation that life is unfair, a moment that defines them. The other sees it as an opportunity, maybe a chance to pivot, to build something new, to finally pursue something they were too afraid to chase before. Same event, different outcome. And the only difference? perspective. We cannot always control our circumstances, but we can always control the way we interpret them. And in that interpretation, we shape our future. Reframing challenges as opportunities. We are conditioned to see challenges as obstacles, as things that stand in our way. But what if challenges weren't barriers at all? What if they were invitations? Opportunities to grow, to learn, to evolve. Think about the most successful people in the world. None of them got there by avoiding hardship. They got there by embracing it. They didn't see failure as the end. They saw it as a stepping stone. They didn't see setbacks as unfair. They saw them as necessary. Thomas Edison famously said, "I have not failed. I've just found 1,000,000 ways that won't work." That is the power of perspective. The ability to look at a failure and see wisdom, to look at rejection and see redirection, to look at a challenge and see a lesson. The way we frame our experiences determines the quality of our lives. If we see everything as a problem, life will feel like a constant battle. But if we see everything as an opportunity, life becomes a never-ending process of growth. Fixed versus growth mindset. Perspective is not just about how we view individual events, it's about how we view life itself. And at the core of that is the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. A fixed mindset believes that things are the way they are, that intelligence is static, that failure is a sign to stop, that challenges mean we aren't good enough. A growth mindset, on the other hand, believes that everything is fluid, that intelligence can be developed, that failure is simply part of the process, that challenges mean we are growing. The difference between someone who thrives and someone who stays stuck isn't talent, luck, or opportunity. It's the perspective they choose to adopt. The lens of gratitude. Perspective isn't just about reframing challenges. It's also about recognizing the good that is already present. Most of us spend our days focusing on what's missing. The job we don't have yet, the relationship that hasn't worked out, the money that isn't in the bank. But what if, instead of focusing on lack, we focused on abundance? Gratitude is a perspective shift. It's the decision to see what's already good instead of only noticing what isn't. It's the ability to wake up and say, I may not have everything I want, but I have more than enough to be thankful for. People think happiness is something you achieve when everything finally falls into place. But happiness is simply a perspective. It's how we choose to see what is already in front of us. Breaking free from limiting perspectives. Perspective is powerful, but it can also be a trap. Sometimes we get stuck in ways of thinking that hold us back. We assume we aren't talented enough. We believe we're too old or too young. We tell ourselves success is for other people. But these are just perspectives. Perspectives we've either been taught or have reinforced over time. And the moment we realize we chose them is the moment we realize we can change them. If you've been telling yourself a story that keeps you small, ask yourself, is this really true? Or is it just a perspective I've been holding on to? Because if it's just a perspective, that means it can be rewritten. Most of us go through life reacting. We let external events dictate how we feel. If someone is kind to us, we feel happy. If someone criticizes us, we feel hurt. If things go according to plan, we feel at ease. If something unexpected happens, we feel stressed. It's as if our emotions are on a leash, being pulled in every direction by forces outside of our control. But here's the truth, no one makes us feel anything. Our emotions don't come from what happens to us, they come from how we interpret what happens to us. And once we understand that, we take back control. The power of choice. Imagine two people stuck in the same traffic jam. One is fuming, honking the horn, checking the time, cursing under their breath. The other is calm, listening to music, making peace with the situation, even enjoying a few extra minutes of solitude. Same traffic, same external event, but two completely different emotional experiences. Why? Because one person handed control of their emotions to the situation, while the other person took ownership of their response. We want others to see us a certain way. We want our boss to acknowledge our work. We want our friends and family to act the way we think they should. And when they don't, we take it personally, we feel disappointed, frustrated, or even resentful. But the reality is we cannot control other people's actions, choices, or opinions. We can influence, we can communicate, we can set boundaries, but at the end of the day, how someone else behaves is their responsibility. How we respond to it, that's ours. The moment we stop trying to manage other people's reactions and start focusing on managing our own emotions, we free ourselves. The space between stimulus and response. There's a quote often attributed to Viktor Frankl. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. Most people live in a state of reaction. Someone says something offensive and we snap back. A setback occurs and we spiral into frustration. But emotional ownership is about recognizing that we always have that space, the moment between what happens and how we respond. Stop outsourcing your happiness. One of the biggest traps we fall into is outsourcing our happiness to external factors. I'll be happy when I get that promotion. I'll be at peace once this situation is resolved. I'll feel good about myself when they finally acknowledge my effort. But when we tie our emotions to things outside of our control, we set ourselves up for constant disappointment. Because what happens if that promotion doesn't come? What happens if the situation doesn't resolve the way we want? What happens if the validation we're waiting for never arrives? Happiness cannot be something we delegate to external forces. It has to come from within. The moment we stop waiting for outside conditions to dictate our inner state, we take full ownership of our emotional well-being. Reframing negative emotions. Taking emotional ownership doesn't mean ignoring difficult emotions or pretending to be happy all the time. It means learning to manage our emotions in a way that empowers us. Anger, frustration, disappointment, these emotions are not inherently bad. They are signals, messages telling us something needs our attention. But instead of letting them consume us, we can choose to use them constructively. Instead of letting anger turn into resentment, we can ask, what boundary needs to be set? Instead of letting disappointment turn into self-doubt, we can ask, what can I learn from this? Instead of letting fear hold us back, we can ask, what is this fear trying to teach me? Emotions are not the enemy, but when we refuse to take ownership of them, they become the masters of our lives instead of tools for our growth. Breaking free from emotional triggers. Many of us have emotional triggers, situations that set us off almost instantly. Maybe it's criticism, being ignored, or feeling out of control. These triggers come from past experiences, deep-seated beliefs, and subconscious patterns we've developed over time. The problem isn't that we have triggers. The problem is that we let them dictate our reactions. Taking emotional ownership means recognizing those triggers, understanding where they come from, and consciously deciding not to let them control us. It means asking, is my reaction about this moment, or is it about something deeper? And more importantly, do I want to continue letting this have power over me? Emotional ownership in difficult situations. Life will throw challenges at us. People will disappoint us. Things won't always go as planned. But how we respond to these situations determines our experience of them. A breakup, a failure, a betrayal, these things hurt. But instead of focusing on what someone else did or what went wrong, we can shift our attention to what we can learn, how we can grow, and how we can move forward with strength. We can't control what happens, but we can always control how we choose to carry it.